live on Facebook. So welcome, folks, and Representative Berry, I'll hand to you.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Andrew. Great to have everyone with us tonight for another exciting edition of the legislative, multi-partisan, nonpartisan, bicameral broadband caucus. We have some terrific guests tonight who I'm really looking forward to hearing from. And before we do, I just want to give the opportunity for new members to introduce themselves. I may need a little help here because I'm on a small screen. So why don't folks just, well, I'll tell you what, Andrew or Rick, can one of you help me out here? See anyone new faces?
Sure. Who is coming here for the first time? Anybody here for the first time? Oh yeah, there you are, Kyle. Go ahead, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Kyle Leathers. I am the president of the Katahdin Region Broadband Utility for the Millinocket, East Millinocket, and Medway area.
Awesome. Good to see you. And Mia, of course. Yeah. How are you?
Good. Thank you. I'm here for the first time. I am with Community Concepts Finance Corporation and have been working on broadband issues in Oxford County for a couple of years.
With extreme aplomb.
Thank you.
That's great. Is that it?
Anybody else? Once, twice. Back to you, Seth.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone. And this is a terrific group. You know, I think for our partners who keep track of our attendance, everyone who's made all of these meetings so far should get a gold star on their portion of the map. I'm putting in that request today because this has been a very busy legislative season, and I know you're tracking our attendance, so I'm going to ask for a gold star on my portion of the map tonight. And others too. It's just been great. You know, Senator Bennett and I actually presented I supported his bond bill yesterday in the Appropriations Committee. And it was so wonderful to have, I believe, 3 members of this Broadband Caucus who are sitting, listening to us as members also of the Appropriations Committee. That's powerful. So thank you to all for joining, whatever committee you're on. We do have some very special guests tonight. We're going to be hearing from Mia Purcell about the wonderful work that she's doing with Maine West and Community Concepts. And then Kyle Leathers will be talking with us about regional collaboration up in the Millinocket area, the Katahdin Broadband Project, just a wonderful success story as well. We're going to have some time for Q&A towards the end, and we will also be talking about pending legislation. So that's the plan for tonight. Really looking forward to all of it. And I know we had a great feedback, by the way, on the success stories, the presentations last week. I know people really enjoyed that, hearing from the Down East Broadband Utility, the other guests. And so we're going to continue doing more of that and inspiring some of the transformational work that's going on out there in our communities. Just a reminder that Japhet and Tracy and Andrew are members of a much bigger group, a very, very big group actually, called the Maine Broadband Coalition. They're the ones, running the website that, treats this group with our very own Caucus Corner, where you can see on the map where we're attending from and post a video of yourself and all that. So really appreciate all the work you guys are doing. And you're also helping to inform our policy work in many committees, appropriations just being one yesterday. So with that, I want to turn it over to 2 of you. Japhet, who again is with AARP, and Tracy, who is with a telco, both so dedicated on broadband, and give us a little update on the Caucus Corner, please.
Thank you, Rep. Berry. I believe Tracy actually couldn't make today, so I'm not seeing her. So I will speak up on her behalf as well. we have a great little corner of the Maine Broadband Coalition website dedicated to all of you, the great work that's happening in the caucus. I just dropped a link into chat, so those of you who are online with us should be able to access that. If you're not, if you're over the phone, it's just mainbroadbandcoalition.org/caucus-corner. Give it a look-see if you haven't. If you're one of the new faces this week, I definitely encourage you to look it up. We are storing all of our previous recorded meetings and caucus meetings there. And if you were to go there right now, you'd see on that page a recording of the previous meeting, which was referenced earlier. There's some great stories coming out of Roque Bluffs, as well as some places in Franklin County, all stories of communities that are banding together to get broadband and fiber to their communities. There's also a great conversation with Joe Meadows, who is based in Liberty, Maine, but he is one of the few folks who is trying out Starlink, which has been getting a lot of headlines of late. If you're interested in seeing that, I urge you to take some time and just take a look at the previous caucus meeting, located at the link in the chat. And as always, a quick reminder, we are putting together videos of each of you and just some simple questions about why you are concerned about broadband, why you want it for your constituents, and the importance of it for Maine's future. I think we all can agree that it has a very significant role going forward. If you are interested in doing a video, whether it's an interview with myself or Tracy over Zoom, or just one that you do yourself with your phone, just let me know, and we'll get you signed up for a quick slot and get that up and online so that your constituents and all of Maine can see where you stand when it comes to this important issue. And I think that's all I have.
Great. All right, so I think we're at the point now, 1 minute early. You caught me unawares. The next thing on the next item on the agenda is current legislation discussion. And we're just going to do about 5 minutes of this. And we already mentioned about LD 1235, the bond bill, which was heard in appropriations yesterday. Again, many thanks to the extraordinary organizational abilities of many of you to get our message out. I understand LD 1219, which is the poll attachment bill, which Representative Toole spoke about earlier at one of our earlier sessions, that had a public hearing, I believe yesterday as well, and didn't know if we wanted to touch on that. I also wanted to let you all know that what I consider the companion bill to the bond bill, LD 1484, which is also which is my bill, which is co-sponsored by all of the chairs of the Broadband Caucus, is up for a public hearing in Energy next Tuesday, I believe at 9 o'clock. So that bill is a remake of the Connect Maine Authority. We spoke about it earlier, so I won't rehash it too much here, but it really makes a much more muscular, independent agency that can actually do a strategic build out of broadband all across the state instead of being just reactive. And as such, it is a very interesting concept. It's kind of based around like the Maine Turnpike Authority and a little bit of the Maine Technology Institute, and but it really steps up our game at the state level in order to be able to tackle this challenge with competence. And it also, of course, has, as we spend lots and lots of money, we know we've got at least $128 million coming in from the feds, and maybe bond package, other monies that might be available. It creates an agency of state government to make sure that the public interest is maintained as we tackle that challenge. So does anybody have any other bills in the offing that they wanted to just touch on briefly that may be coming up for public hearing that relate to broadband?
I will just mention, Senator, that we do really look forward to hearing your bill to take Connect Maine to the next level. to really propel us forward in our quest for world-class universal affordable internet here in Maine. Really looking forward to hearing LD 1494 next Tuesday. And there's also another bill of mine, which I regrettably don't remember the number of, but it has to do with, we've talked about it here. It has to do with creating more opportunity for some of the areas that are perhaps served, but really want to take it to, you know, the gigabit level, to get, you know, a little love as well from the state. And really looking forward to talking about that municipal gigabit broadband bill. I know there's some exciting interest going on in the Mid-Coast region, for example, Representative Dodge, and you know, other parts of the state as well, where, you know, folks may be kind of served, but maybe not really served. And we do want to create some magnet communities here in Maine where folks who have, you know, incredible businesses or talents or entrepreneurial skills or vision can come and access the kind of gigabit service that you do need for certain kinds of professions and enterprises. So really looking forward to that bill as well. I'll find the, I think Andrew put it up, 1482. Is that my bill?
1432, my mistake.
32, 1432.
Eights and threes look so much alike.
We have, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Rick. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say we have the most active chat I've seen on Zoom. I mean, Andrew's and the rest of you are always putting great stuff up there. So just keep an eye on when you're during the meeting. There's a lot of great stuff there.
But I will also say that the Appropriations Committee was very attentive. We again really appreciate that so many of them have taken an interest in this work. A lot of nodding heads and a lot of folks from the public making incredibly compelling arguments about, you know, why this is a time to really put our foot on the accelerator with respect to broadband, maximize the lift that we can get from the federal dollars that we do have at all levels, and make sure the state is doing its part as well. So this is really potentially a transformative moment, and we're really pleased with the way that bond discussion went yesterday as well.
Thanks, Seth, and I really appreciate your testimony. I thought it was quite powerful and I appreciate it. I would now, I'm going to turn it back over to Andrew to introduce the core of our meeting, which is always the best, which is stories of inspiration about what real people are doing across this state, and sometimes you'll hear across the country, in terms of getting the job done of building high-speed internet available to people, particularly who may not usually be the first in line to get it. So, looking forward to those stories. I'll kick it over to you, Andrew. Thank you.
Great, wonderful. Also, just as we cap the legislative discussion, I just wanted to highlight for you all that at the beginning of this year, this legislative session, the Broadband Coalition's Policy Committee, led by Grow Smart Maine's Nancy Smith, who's also in attendance today, helped us facilitate top tier priorities from a legislative standpoint. And it was pretty exciting this week to see 2 of the 4 top priorities for the coalition come before the Appropriations and Financial Affairs Committee. LD 1219 is a really big deal to make it easier to deploy the necessary investments, and LD 1235, of course, helps fuel that fire. So I think it's a good testament that we've got a collective system that is working, and this caucus is a really big part of it. Just wanted to highlight that.
Andrew, before you go on, I think we have a new attendee from the legislature that just appeared. I think, although she's not showing her face and she's on mute, there she is, Senator Stacey Brenner. Senator, can you introduce yourself briefly?
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry for not being visibly present. I'm trying to put some things together in my barn. So I'm listening, and I'm delighted to be here, and I'm looking forward to supporting the work of the Broadband Caucus. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If you need a hand, Stacy, give me a shout. I'll be over in about 10, 15 minutes. No problem.
Come on over, Chris. Lots of flowers. Actually,
to
I could
work.
take you guys on a tour, but I don't want to take up precious time.
That could be
great.
built into our next session. That sounds great, actually.
Great, perfect.
So
Thank
wonderful and welcome. This week we've got a wonderful opportunity to hear from a couple different models in the state. And if you're on any email listserv around broadband, or you are paying attention to any of the community activities, chances are you have seen, heard, or talked with Mia Purcell, who I believe in her primary role of directing economic development at Community Concepts Finance Corporation in Oxford County, also is a primary partner with the Maine West collaboration, which I'll let Mia speak to, but has been truly an incredible model helping facilitate multi-organizational collaboration in central and western Maine. So Mia, thanks for joining us and sharing a little bit of your lessons learned, insights, success stories, and stories from the road.
Oh, thanks for the introduction, Andrew. And I'm glad to see that Walter Riseman is here because he's been involved with the boot camp in Harrison as their chairperson. So he's boots on the ground, literally. But the Maine Broadband Boot Camp basically came about through the Maine West collaboration, as Andrew mentioned. This is literally it's a collaboration. It's not a nonprofit or a separate organization per se with tax status. And it was formed through the Betterment Fund, which many of you may have heard of. It's a Bethel-based foundation that basically supports a lot of nonprofit work across the state, but largely in Western Maine. And it was Bill Clough who formed Maine West, and different organizations were invited to be part of it. And I am the economic development representative as part of Maine West. And we cover the northern part of Oxford County. So it's the towns in the school districts in the Oxford Hills, Bethel area, and River Valley that are part of Maine West. And our charge over the 10 years that the Maine West collaboration is being funded or supported through the Betterment Fund is to basically support and better conservation, healthcare, economic development, and education. So we have different organizations that represent those different sectors. And I immediately chose broadband as the focus for economic development. This was back when I saw that the 3-ring binder was going through our area and basically nobody was using it. And I thought, wow, what a resource here that, seems to be unused. Well, I've since learned that there are a lot of other resources as well. And that kicked off our efforts. We got a planning grant from the Connect Maine Authority, which looked at this whole region. It was all 27 towns. And that was helpful, but there was a piece of the work that we needed to do that we didn't do. And we decided to do that through the boot camp, and that was community engagement. And it's really critical. If you don't engage your community, you will not get very far with broadband. And so last summer, and Andrew was part of this effort too, along with Peggy Schaefer from the Connect Maine Authority, Nick Batista, and Kendra Jo Grindle from the Island Institute. We all kind of helped shape the Broadband Boot Camp. And what it was an effort to reach out to all of the towns in the Maine West area. We included Oxford County, so we also had Freiburg, Denmark as part of this. Even Bridgeton and Naples joined as well, though they're not part of Oxford County. And we encouraged them all to develop a broadband committee, which they did. And then we walked them through basically the different components of the broadband process. So they formed a committee. We had a session on return on investment, so they would understand that. Peggy did a session on different models for broadband. We invited the major internet service providers to come and do an interview. We had Susan Corbett, who talked about digital literacy. And then we also focused on funding, different funding opportunities for folks. And during all of this, some wonderful things happened that we hadn't planned on. The Maine Broadband Coalition decided to do speed testing, which was perfect. So that fit in very nicely with the surveying work that we were also encouraging the towns to do. Survey their residents and find out what kind of internet they have, what they use it for, how happy they are, etc. And so the speed testing came along, and on top of that, Andrew also connected up with the Vetro Fiber folks. And so we were part of the first cohort of Vetro Fiber Cares, which allowed our communities that participated to access really great mapping software. And I know Walter and his committee have been using that in Harrison. The Denmark committee has been using it, and so is the committee in the Mahoosic area. So the boot camp ended in January, but we have a special web page on our website for Maine West. And by the way, it's mainewest.org, not the high school, which happens to be located in Indiana. Go figure. But we have recordings from most of our workshop sessions on there, and we also have a whole list of resources. So people can really come and work through the information on our web page and do some one-on-one learning for themselves. Since then, I've been following up with a number of the committees that formed out of the boot camp. Harrison is one, Denmark's another, Sumner, and then we have the Mahoosic area, and that's really the Bethel area. We call it Mahoosic because there are 6 towns now. We just got one added yesterday through the county, which was a huge coup for us. Anyway, they don't like to be called the Bethel area. They want to be recognized as individuals. So we call it the Mahoosic Community Broadband Committee. And they have circulated a request for proposal to a number of different vendors to do some data collection and mapping to basically identify where served and unserved addresses are in the area so that we will know where we really need to expand high-speed broadband, because we do have some fiber in the area through First Light and Spectrum, also consolidated. We have a lot of DSL, and we also have a lot of areas that really have no service at all that are kind of off the grid. So it's a mixture, but it makes for an interesting project. And as I said, Oxford County decided to participate with Albany Township joining our project. So that makes 6 towns. We've been working together as a region from the get-go. And I do think that really makes a difference. And I'll be interested to hear about the Katahdin and Millinocket areas experience, and if they've been working together from the beginning, or if they've been trying to kind of pull themselves together after doing some work individually, because I think it makes a difference, or at least it has for us. And in the meantime, while we're doing this work and the other committees are pursuing their work, and I can let Walter speak to the work of the Harrison Committee, we received, Community Concepts Finance Corporation received a Northern Border Regional Commission grant. It's a small grant, $44,000, to purchase 10 Wi-Fi hotspots and also pay for the installation of those hotspots. We're targeting those to areas in the Maine West region. This is to provide a short-term solution, especially for those who do not have internet service or it's available, but they can't afford it. And also for visitors, especially in the Bethel area where we do have a lot of visitors. Interestingly enough, I got a request yesterday from Harrison for 3, and I've got several that have been requested for the Bethel area. So they're going a little bit like hotcakes. But one of the interesting things about this is that the uh, E-rate system is now allowing schools to siphon off some of their interconnectivity for Wi-Fi hotspots for parking lots and areas like that. So we're looking at expanded possibilities for Wi-Fi hotspots to serve in that short-term capacity. I've kind of given you a really quick thumbnail sketch. Walter, do you want to say anything about the Harrison Committee?
Yes, I want to really thank Mia for providing us with the opportunity to provide some hotspots in strategic areas in our town here, and it looks like we're going to be able to get the downtown area covered here because of that. And I do want to point out that our committee has come up with a conclusion there are short-term solutions and long-term solutions, and we're convinced that a short-term solution using these hotspots plus some other methods are going to be very productive for providing broadband in a, let's say, on a 1-year basis. And looking forward to a longer-term version, we're probably looking 2 to 3 years or more down the road here in terms of covering what we need to get covered in our town, in our region here. So I'll leave it at that. I don't want to take up all the time here. Thanks.
Yeah, well, thank you. I am happy to answer any questions. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mia, for joining and for all that you do, both in Oxford County and with the Maine Broadband Coalition. And also, I would say, are you good to hang out for a few minutes for questions? Because my bet is that there's a nice complementary set of stories between what Maine West has been doing and I think with what Katahdin Broadband is doing. And so I would imagine questions are going to be bubbling. And I also think there are a couple things that you mentioned that folks may want to flag for follow-up. You mentioned Vetro and what that is and why the value. You mentioned E-rate. So I think that's helpful. And I would just underscore that the work of multi-town coordination for finding common goals and priorities is Herculean. And there's a lot of effort that goes into that education and capacity building at a committee level. And so that may be sort of a rich area for folks to explore and inquire as well. Changing gears, Kyle, thank you so much. I'm trying to make eye contact. Thank you so much, Kyle, for joining. And for folks who haven't connected with Kyle Leathers of Katahdin Broadband yet either, the broadband work is just a part of Kyle's life, also as an educator and also select board member. Is that right, Kyle?
That is right. Yeah. Teacher being the most important one, though. So. But thank you for having me. I appreciate all of the work that you're all doing on broadband and many other issues that I've been following along over the legislative session. So thank you all for that. So just to give you a bit of background, I'm the president of the Katahdin Region Broadband Utility. We were created, I guess, technically in 2018, October 2018. We had an interlocal agreement that was signed by the towns of Millinocket, East Millinocket, where I'm from, and Medway. As some of you guys might know, it's a region that has a long history of competing against each other, especially in sports, but in many other aspects as well. And so this was something, Mia, to connect with what you said. We did work from the very beginning together. That was, I think, a very important step that you mentioned there. There was an unofficial committee that was started several years ago. I'm not even sure when it started because I was not a part of it at that point. But around 2017, I joined in with this effort, and at that point we were looking at creating a utility. And so we signed the interlocal agreements in October 2018. We had our bylaws passed and finalized in January of 2019. And from there, it seems like it's been a decade that we've been working on it, even though it's only been a couple of years. So, just to give you an idea of what our utility looks like, we have 2 members on the board of directors from each town. So there's 6 of us total. That seems like there might be a problem at some point with ties, but we've always figured that if we are tied on something, then that just means we have more work to do. And so we are, and we have not had any problems with that. So thankfully. We were looking for a community-owned network. We wanted an open access network, which I know Danny Sullivan talked about at the last meeting. We wanted to have as much competition as possible to help drive down the costs for our constituents for their internet connection. So we very quickly had an offer on the table. Somebody came to us and said, "Hey, we want to work with you." That we spent several months working through that. It was quite a process. There was some signs that was not going to work out, and sure enough, near the end of 2019, that company, which was from California, went bankrupt, and we started over again, which was not really a problem because we learned a lot of lessons from that issue. But then, we had a few divides on the board, but that kind of made us go back to the beginning and say, hey, what are our goals here? What are our priorities? And what are the steps that we need to take? And so I then went to the towns because the towns did not fund the utility. We had started the interlocal agreement and the bylaws. The legal aspect of that was all paid for with a grant that a local nonprofit organization had received prior to that. And then so we had no funding. I went to the towns and asked for funding for an engineering study, which ended up being done through Casco Bay Advisors, Brian Lippold. Any of you guys who know him know that he's he's excellent to work with. He knows his stuff. So I ended up between the 3 towns getting $130,000 to pay for this engineering study and also the construction RFP, so that when we were done, we would have that ready to go. Then COVID hit and everything slowed down, not just in the broadband world. And so it took several extra months to get our engineering study back. We finally got that back at the end of October of last year. And we then had another company come to us and say, hey, we want to do broadband in your area. This is the amount of money we would need. Let's work together. And I said, well, let's hold on a second and see what other options we have. We have this RFP to go out to construction. We have an RFP for a network operator. So let's see what we have. And so back in January, we went out to bid. We got 5 responses. They were all great companies, either Maine-based companies or companies that had connections to Maine. And so we are now at the process where we've chosen one that we believe is the top bid, and we are beginning negotiations with them. So some of the problems that we faced in this couple of years was, number one, the lack of funding. We were always told that we would not qualify for a lot of the Connect Maine funds because, and I'm very glad to hear Representative Berry's bill, because we are technically served. The companies that we have, our incumbent ISPs, have in fact already gone to the state on other occasions and said, hey, we cover this region. They don't need the funds, leave them alone. And we can't get that funding. So I'm sure that there are a lot of communities throughout the state that are in that same exact position and definitely need help. In fact, right now we're looking for about $30,000 to help with consulting and legal for the negotiations here. And so I think that if we had waited about 2 more months to get the funding for the engineering study, the towns probably wouldn't have given it, because at that point COVID had hit, and we I hate to say timed that just right, but it was a close one, especially in Medway. They're very fiscally conservative there, and the vote at the town meeting was like 23 to 25, so we were very close. And as I said, the funding through Connect Maine would we just don't qualify for it. A few things that I think help to keep the communities working together, and this is something that we learned, is that I think before a community forms a utility or a broadband group, talk about what the priorities for each community are. Do you want an open access network? Are you okay with a single provider network? Do you want a community, municipally owned network, or are you okay partnering with an ISP or construction company or whoever to own it? And so make sure you know what those priorities are first. We thought that we had the same priorities from the beginning, and then as we went through the process, realized that the priorities were all the same, but they were in different orders. And so that we just had to work out. And then the other thing that I would really recommend is that in these groups or the utility boards, make sure that the people involved are people who have a regional focus. If you're picking people, because our, say the town of Medway and town of East Millinocket, our boards of selectmen choose who the board representatives are on the utility, and Millinocket, it's their town council. And if you're choosing people based on like they're going to represent our town and just do what's in the best interest for our town, it's not going to work. I don't think, I'm sure that everybody knows that egos and agendas can get in the way. And so that's something that you need to try to avoid from the beginning. This work is it's a lot of work. This is like a second full-time job for me that I'm not getting paid for, but it's complicated work. And so you need to have people who are really willing to work for everybody. My motto from the beginning is nobody gets left behind, and I really try to stick to that for all 3 communities. Medway is a little bit more rural than East Millinocket and Millinocket are, and so there are a few instances where they could have gotten left out, and I said we're not moving forward unless we're all moving forward together. And so that really has to be, if you're working regionally, then just because it's going to be easier to leave a town out or a community out, just don't do it. That's just going to leave bad feelings later on. And then one thing I would add is we kept our representation on the board of directors equal. So every town has 2 representatives on the board of directors. There have been conversations about doing it by population. Millinocket has a higher population than the other towns, but I really recommend keeping it equal, just because it leaves everybody feeling like it is equal, and that one town isn't going to take over the process at some point. And honestly, we've been able to work together quite well under that agreement. So I think that's pretty much it for what I have, but thank you again for letting me share our story.
Well, great. Andrew, did you have any comments before we go to Q&A?
No, happy to hand it over for Q&A. Thanks, Kyle and Mia, for joining.
Yeah, that's great. It's great to have you both here. And it's always good to get granular and real about what people are doing. It's really helpful to all of us at the state policymaking level. And I'd be happy to, if somebody want to raise their hand with a question. And while you're thinking of your question, let me ask one, which is, on that point of, I'm putting this bill forward next week, which is supported by a lot of you, regarding a more muscular Connect Maine authority. And I really want, because I believe that we need a better statewide strategy. And you're kind of doing at the regional level what a lot of people are, hungering for the state to adopt on a statewide level, which is like putting people together, finding ways of making it work, getting people to work together, be sensible about the mapping, and all of that stuff. And I wonder if you could have, what do you, I'd love to hear your thoughts about what your concerns would be, and some necessities that you'd like to see if the Connect Maine Authority or some agency like it really stepped up into a much more strategic, muscular role rather than a reactive role, which they do now, which is very important. They've done great work with it, but it's been sort of ad hoc. And so, I'd love to hear, Mia, Kyle, your thoughts as regional leaders as to, what should we look for, what should we hope for, and what we should look out for with a more aggressive state approach. Mia, you want to start?
Well, I'll step in and say that I do think, especially with the rural communities that we have, most of our towns are small. Regional is the way to go. And I like the open access approach. It doesn't work for everybody, but I do think that's the way. I do think that's where you're going to get affordable internet for everyone and choice, which a lot of people don't have either. And I think looking at what Vermont is doing is a possible model, although we may be too late to get into that, but they're doing regional. They've set up these districts through state legislation, and it seems to be working well from them from what little I've seen. I don't know if others are familiar with it, but a small town going it alone, it's tough. It's really tough. So I salute you, Kyle, and I understand all the time that it takes. But I do think encouraging more regional efforts is definitely our future, especially with the small towns.
Yeah, I would second what Mia said. And it's worked out pretty well for us to keep it regional, but also the threat, anytime that a town was like, well, we don't like what's going on here, we'll go off and do this on our own. We said, okay, where are you going to get the money to do it?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to give any money to a small town that's going to go off on their own. So the regional aspect certainly looks a lot better, and it works. It's, as Mia said, it's worked in other states. And so I should absolutely work here as well.
Great.
I do think education, though, is huge. I mean, people know what they know about the internet that they get, but I don't think, I mean, I look at broadband and it's almost like healthcare. It's a three-legged stool. You've got access, you've got affordability, and then you've got the whole digital piece to it, and you have to have a computer and know how to use it. If any of those pieces are missing, the whole thing kind of falls apart. And where Connect Maine Authority is largely looking at the infrastructure piece, which is important. And I know Peggy understands that it's bigger than just the infrastructure, but it's a whole package. It really is. And you have to think about it, I think, as a whole package to really be thoughtful and good at addressing it.
And Peggy has been great about saying too that, what we're doing or what another region is doing is not necessarily going to work for another part of the state. And this is something that we honestly had heard that Calais and Baileyville were creating their utility, and we were like, great, that's a direction that we should go in. And it's worked for us, but there are other places that it probably won't work. It's better to have like a working group or a committee or something like that instead. And so that does make it a little bit more challenging. The literacy part of it, I think, is huge. Our libraries here have been pretty good about getting grants for digital literacy. In fact, I'm sitting in the library in the East Millinocket right now because my connection at home is much worse than the one here. I don't actually own this many clocks in the background here. But so this is, that's a huge part of it too. And especially where Maine in general and our area have a large older population, and trying to convince them, why do I need the high-speed internet? And it's like, well, telehealth, Zooming with the grandkids, whatever you need to do, especially in rural areas where a lot of our health resources are, for us, it's 60 miles away in Bangor. I mean, it's a long trip, especially in the winter, for anybody. And so the digital literacy is a huge part of it, for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that's wise, counsel, because I think we need to keep this that energy that local people are bringing at in particular the regional level, as we maybe be a little bit more assertive at the state level. We don't want to lose that. I saw Jay had a question.
Thank you. Quick comment and a quick question. I just want to thank Kyle and Mia for that info. And Kyle, a lot of what you guys were saying is what we hear at AARP. And that's indeed why we had one of our members who didn't have an internet connection testify by phone on Senator Bennett's bill yesterday during the public hearing. I'll just add, not just telehealth and telemedicine, but banking has moved largely online. I think a lot of us are now using apps on our phone. And so what we're seeing is a lot of older folks being left behind. But Mia, like you were saying, if they don't even have the option to plug in at home, then we don't have to worry about whether there's a digital divide with technology and learning computers. So I think, like you said, it all goes hand in hand, and you have to have all three. I'm curious from both of you perspectives. There's a lot of conversations about whether to, how much to sort of allow towns and communities to band together to figure this out on their own. And then there's sort of a larger conversation about how to bring the whole state as one up to a certain level to meet a certain bar. And those two often sort of seem at odds, because one is allowing towns and communities to do the heavy lifting. And from what you both were sharing, it sounds like there's a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of conversations that are not easy and take time. But what's your sense of, I guess the question would be, would you do it again? What have you learned? And do you think that there's another aspect, or what's your response to that idea of a more collective statewide push that sort of raises all ships, so to speak?
That's a really good question. Well, in mentioning Vermont, they've taken that statewide approach. I don't know that much about what other states are doing, but I do think that it is a heavy lift, and it would be great if all of the communities had equal access to information and could approach this sort of collectively or thinking together. Unfortunately, that's not happening. It only happens as they're really interested in taking on this whole effort. It's like it's got to be a wake-up call for them. I think the pandemic has certainly helped in that regard, but it's not waking everybody up in the same way. But I like the question. I think it's a great one.
It's a good one to bear in mind. Kyle, do you have a response?
Yeah, I think it's tough to find the balance between at the state level and the local level, but I think there's some places that are ready to go at a local level, and others that still need to be convinced that this is something that they need to do. Maybe the community or a region doesn't have people who are willing to immediately step up and run a working group or a utility. And so that might be where the state might need to help push communities in that direction, because once they have it, there's not going to be any going back. I mean, it's such a night and day thing between fiber and copper. So I think that's maybe where the balance might come into play there. And would I do it again? I absolutely. The only thing is I would probably hopefully learn some lessons from the past 2 years, but this is just this is infrastructure for the next 20, 30, however many years. I mean, this is not something that a community can mess up, because if you do, then you're in trouble for a long time. And so that's where I've tried to make sure that we're going in the right direction and taking time when we need to make the right choices.
I will say, one of the things that we run into with some of the committees is the unwillingness of towns to take on any debt or to contribute financially to broadband. So many of them, particularly in this part of the world, it's a fairly conservative area, don't want to take on any outstanding debt, and to invest in broadband isn't cheap. And some people think, well, if I just wait long enough, somebody else will do it for me. Well, how many years is that going to be? 5, 10 years? Who knows?
Right.
So it's a lot of it is also like Kyle or others said, are you going to be reactive or proactive? And we're trying to work with towns to be proactive.
Great. Thank you for those answers. I think we have time to squeeze in at least one more question. I see Representative Berry has his hand up.
Thank you both so much. This has been phenomenal to hear from you, and I hope you'll find it in your busy schedules to come and testify on a hearing next Tuesday if you're able. I imagine, Kyle, you're teaching at that time, unfortunately, but we would love to see you in our committee and other policy committees that are working on this stuff. I had a quick question for you, Kyle. We heard last week from the Down East broadband utility that there's this, what they called a home run fiber network. So as I understood it, that was, full fiber all the way to the premises. Is that what you're contemplating in the Millinocket area as well?
Yes, the goal was 100% coverage through all 3 towns, and we would not accept anything less. And we still got 5 bids for it. So we're very pleased with what we got there. But yes, fiber to the home, or fiber to the premise for 100% of all 3 towns.
That's very exciting. Well, I don't want to spoil the news of an upcoming guest, but I'm going to turn it back to I think Rick and Andrew have some news that might be somewhat related to that, about a favorite author of mine. I'll turn it back to you guys.
Yeah, thanks. I just, as I turn it over to Andrew for our last 5 minutes, I just wanted to say again, Kyle, thank you so much for bringing your story to us. Mia, I'm more familiar with the work you do, and on a personal level, I want to say thank you for what you do for my communities. You're a great gift.
Thanks for your support.
Yeah, it's this issue, but it's a lot of other issues too. I'm fully aware. So thank you, Mia. And with that, I'm happy to turn it back over to Andrew for the concluding elements.
Right. Thank you very much. I've got a handful of items to tie together, and we are going to end at 7 o'clock on the dot. So first of all, again, thanks, Kyle and Mia. Thank you so much for joining. An excellent example of the depth and diversity of the Broadband Coalition's Advisory Committee. Both Mia and Kyle are members of, and I think we all benefit from getting a range of perspectives from different geographies and industries and sectors. So once again, thanks for that. I did want to talk about, you may have noticed a little bit of a theme in tonight's conversation around the power of multi-town collaboration and regional efforts. And that certainly, I think Kyle and Mia kind of hit the nail on the head. And due to that insight and that perspective and the emerging landscape around an infusion of federal recovery and stimulus funds, Broadband Coalition has been doing some thinking around how best to help support communities and counties around how best to make use of this incredible transformative opportunity and real need that we are faced with right now. And so I wanted to share with you all that we are on the very cusp of beginning a new initiative looking to support regional broadband investment dialogues. really at a county level, we will be embarking upon 16 dialogues through the course of the next 4 to 6 months, engaging with hopefully you as representatives of your districts and your regions, but also with county commissions and agencies, municipalities, economic development districts, school districts, health districts, chambers of commerce, and of course, nonprofits and intermediaries and existing regional broadband efforts. To have a focused dialogue around what are goals, what are challenges, what are strategic priorities and existing assets or even deficits, and how can we prioritize potential opportunities within the scope of looking at some of the federal stimulus and recovery funds. So I wanted to put this on your radar, and I think really helpful to hear some insights and perspectives of existing regional efforts, and to recognize that you all have a really, really important role in helping connect your constituents and your communities to existing resources and partnerships. And so invite you to join us in the planning of this. And so I'm actually going to be sharing a very quick form here with you all, just a quick survey. If you'd like to join in and participating in planning one of the dialogues in your area of interest, then please do sign up here. Please feel free to let us know if you have any questions. And again, this is a very new initiative taking shape right now.
And grab that link fast because the meeting's ending in 2 minutes. So make sure you grab it.
Thank you, Senator. So next up, our next meeting is May 5th. As folks know, we'll be hearing from some additional guest speakers. And I did want to let folks know that as of now, on May 19th, it appears that we will have a guest speaker in the form of author Susan Crawford. Wow, look at this. Great work, guys. Author of Fiber is going to be joining us on May 19th for a solid half-hour conversation, and then she'll be fielding Q&A from you. This is a huge opportunity, and I think an opportunity for us to engage her on further activities in Maine. So we'll be sharing information about that. Please sign up and share the word with your colleagues. Please also note that Japheth will be in touch with you regarding participation in a blog, much like Representative Sachs recently did and is highlighted on the Broadband Coalition website. And as always, please let us know what more or different you want out of these sessions. And there is one last survey for you to take a look at, and copy and paste that link and let us know how things are going with these caucus sessions and what more or different or the same that you were looking for.
Andrew, just looking at the chats, and apparently the link you put up for the form, it says you need permission. So let's make sure we send that out later. So we'll get that fixed, and Andrew will send it out.
You may need to just request permission, and then he can go ahead and grant it from whatever account it is you're using. That often happens. I just want to underscore the importance of that survey. You know, we've talked in my House Democratic Caucus about how the counties are getting a boatload of money, and they're either going to put it into the jails, because that's mostly what they do, or they're going to put it into something like broadband. So if you can engage, you know, use this forum as an opportunity to engage some of your local and county leaders. You know, that's what we're doing here, engaging, you know, regionally, as we heard about tonight. So to make sure that these dollars are put to the best and highest use. I think this is a really important initiative of the Maine Broadband Coalition. Really appreciate their leadership in doing this. And we are connectors. You know, we have that regional perspective and that opportunity to help make those conversations happen. So please do sign up.
So if you go to the Caucus Corner on the Broadband Coalition's page that supports the caucus, I'm sure that Andrew will have a link there soon, right?
That's right. We'll have a link to sign up. I hopefully just shared a link that would allow folks to respond. Sorry for that glitch. if nothing else, we will also be forwarding this, I'll be forwarding the link to all of you in preparation for our upcoming meetings.
Great. Thank you all for coming. I know it's busy time, and I really appreciate the energy that this caucus has. I think it speaks well for the future of Maine.
Amen.
Okay.
Hope to see you, some of you at the hearing on Tuesday.
Yes.
Thank you again, Mia. Thank you again,
Thank you.
Kyle.
Thanks.
Great to have you both with us. Good night,
My
everybody.
pleasure.
Night.
Everybody, have a good night.